What's up, guys? Happy Monday. Welcome back. Episode 50 of the Sicko Sports Podcast. Your boy was sick as a dog last week. I had a cold, a real bad cold. I know you're probably thinking like a cold, man, you know, that's not too big of a deal. But it is when you're trying to record and you can't stop getting snot out your nose and you can't stop coughing and your voice sounds like shit. I looked back at like some of these notes and I have a note for episode 48 that says sore throat on it, and that was March 29th. So like that's when I started getting sick. I still ended up putting out episode 49 the very next day, and then after that I was fucking out. So I've been sick for quite a while. I tried. The sucky thing is, dude, I tried to freaking do an episode on this past Friday. I tried to do one. I tried to record one, and that shit was terrible. Like I was just snot nose. I kept coughing. I was like, I'm gonna have to make so many cuts, so many edits to this thing. So I decided just to wait till I got a little bit better. I still got the sniffles. You might hear a cough here and there, so that really sucks. And especially for the audio listeners, like for the visual, you know, for YouTube, it's not too big of a deal, you know, because you see me kind of coughing, and it's like, oh, it is what it is. But for the audio listeners, I'm like, man, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or iTunes or something like that, and it's just like to constantly hear it, or it's just cut after cut after cut, like it really sucks. But here we are, man. It's Monday. I feel better. I feel way better than I did last Monday. Last Monday I was like, you know, on my deathbed, but I feel way better now. Um, and you know, it is what it is. My voice isn't great still. Like I said, still got the sniffles, but we're pushing forward and we're moving through it. And here we are. I wanted to start this off going straight into UFC 273. It was freaking amazing. It was an amazing card. I'll get into it, but I want to start off because I have had a heavy heart. I've had it on my mind. I know it's an MMA Monday. I know we're supposed to jump into the UFC, and we'll get there. But the passing of Dwayne Haskins really fucked me up, man. Like I don't know what it was. It's not like I was the biggest Dwayne Haskins fan. It's not like I have Dwayne Haskins jersey. It's not like I'm an Ohio State fan. I've never really rooted for Dwayne Haskins. If anything, you could say I kind of rooted against him in terms of his college career because I'm not a huge I don't like Ohio State and I hate Washington. You know, the Washington football to the Commanders. That's what they are now. But I hate those teams. And you know, that's the team he played for. That's the team he got drafted by. But I had big hopes for him when he went to Pittsburgh. I've always kind of liked him. I just hated the situations he was in because it was the teams I didn't like. But with that being said, what I'm trying to say is I was never a huge Dwayne Haskins fan. But for some reason, his passing just hit me so hard. It was just, you know, you put yourself in a position to understand, you know, what he was doing, the life he had in front of him. He was 24 years old. 24 is just you're not even close. You're nowhere close to accomplishing or even seeing the things. You can't even taste the things you're going to accomplish yet. Whether they were going to be in football or not in football. Like his life and his journey and his everything was still in front of him. So it's sad and it's disappointing that he lost his life. He was in Florida. He was in South Florida. A bunch of dudes were out there working out, you know, trying to get better. And that's the other thing. I think that's the thing that stung me the most. Is it's not like this was a guy who, you know, was out and you know, late at night, drunk driving or wrong place, wrong time. And it's like, ah, man, you know, it's tough. You got to avoid those type of situations, or you have to avoid that type of environment. Like, no, man, this was a guy who was there to just work on his craft. This is a 24-year-old kid who felt like he just, you know, was just doing what a professional athlete should do. He was going down there with all the boys, you know, all these other athletes, all these other professionals. Najee Harris was there, Chase Claypool was there, other guys from other teams were there, and he's just trying to get better, man. He's 24 and he's just like, I'm putting in the work, I'm grinding, I'm trying to get better the way most of these athletes do. And that's how, you know, that's unfortunately where he was killed. You know, that's where he lost his life, jogging, you know, a morning run, gets hit by a dumpster truck. Like, what the fuck? It's just so out of nowhere. It's just so random that, you know, you can't help but feel just so bad for Dwayne Haskins, for his family. And, it just stuck with me. It just, I've been having it in my heart. It's been weighing on me, just thinking about his loss, just thinking about, his passing. And then, I kind of want to keep it on a positive side. Like, I hate when the story becomes somebody else when the story should be Dwayne Haskins. The story should be all about Dwayne Haskins. But it was Adam Schefter who first reported it, from Adam Schefter from ESPN. You've seen Adam Schefter everywhere. He's, probably the most known journalist, reporter, whatever you want to call him, insider in the NFL. And he was the first one to report it. And he had a tweet that he deleted almost immediately after. But the tweet said something around the lines of, Dwayne Haskins, after struggling in Washington and struggling to find his way in Pittsburgh, lost his life, passed away. He was going to be 25 or whatever. The tweet said, and people were blowing him up. Like, why is that? What does him as a football player have anything to do with, you know what I mean? Like, why would you even have the need to say how he was struggling to make it in the NFL? He was struggling, to maximize or to hit his potential. Like, he was struggling to do that. Like, why do you have to mention his football struggles, or the fact that he wasn't a starter, or the fact that, it didn't work out for him in Washington and he's in Pittsburgh now trying to make it work? Like, why does any of that need to be said? And that was something that people just annihilated Adam Schefter for. He deleted it, he changed it, and he said, former Ohio State standout and first round draft pick. But dude, even then, it's like, Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback Dwayne Haskins unfortunately passed away in South Florida, hit by a car, whatever you need to say, whatever the situation was. He was only 24 years old. This tragedy happened. Like, that's all you need to say. You don't even have to, whether it's bad or good. Now, the fact that you mentioned his struggles, yeah, it's clear why people are going to jump down your throat. And here's the other thing. I'm not on the, Adam Schefter's a bad dude train. Like, I'm not ready to be like, oh, what a shitty person, what a crappy human being. Like, he made a mistake. But the one thing I think you can tell from that is that Adam Schefter's priorities are a little fucked up. And some of these journalists, reporters, like, you can tell that their priorities are a little messed up. Because what you can tell from that isn't that he's a bad person. Like, people are acting as if he's in some way, celebrating the loss of Dwayne Haskins. Like, no, dude, he's not. What? Like, he's not doing that. But what he is doing is not getting his priorities straight, because he was too focused on being a reporter, right? His initial thought was, I have to be the first to report this. And his thoughts of get it out, I think is what messed him up and didn't allow him to really think about the words that he was putting on there. He didn't really think about the words that he was going to use. Because if his initial mindset was, oh my God, this is so sad, this is such a tragedy, the wording would have been different. I think maybe he thought that afterwards, and he might feel that, I'm not saying, it's not, again, I don't think Adam Schefter is a bad human being. But you can see that he has this professionalism to him that makes him not be empathetic when it's time to be. It's not, at this moment, the most important thing wasn't getting the story out quicker than anybody else. And because that was his thought process and that's all he was really thinking about in that moment, that's what allowed him to make this error and have wording that you shouldn't have used. So, it just sucks. Des Bryant came out and said something about it. A bunch of other players, Lamar Jackson, like a bunch of dudes came out and roasted Adam Schefter. They grilled him. They really let him have it and made it obvious how unhappy they are with his wording and the things he said in that first tweet. And like I said, he deleted it, and he stayed quiet. Like, that's the other thing, is like, it's kind of protocol again, the professionalism. Like, why do you always you don't always have to be a journalist. You don't always have to be an NFL insider. Sometimes you could just be a person. So even if you make that mistake, you can immediately come, instead of deleting it, coming out with one that you think is better and then just staying quiet and staying away from any of it, you can come out and be like, hey, I apologize. I understand how that has no importance to the story, and like that I shouldn't have done that. I apologize. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a buffoon. You know, you could have just came out and been a human being afterwards, but it's still like this need to be the ultimate professional where it's like, dude, sometimes people just want you to be you, man. Just be a normal human. And we make mistakes, and then we say we make mistakes, and then that's it. And you move on. So anyway, back to the focal point of it, which is Dwayne Haskins, just 24 years old, gone way, way, way too soon. You know, RIP Dwayne Haskins. He just has so much in front of him, whether it was football or not. He had his entire life still in front of him. So I feel so bad for his family, his loved ones, his teammates, everybody that just wanted to see him do good, everybody that he was training for, man. That's the thing, you know, like I said, it just stings that much more because he was just trying to get better. He was just working hard, trying to get better, trying to do what he can, and just an out of nowhere tragedy. But anyway, moving on. I just wanted to get that off my chest. I didn't want to wait till Friday. You know, I know I do football stuff on Friday. I didn't want to wait till Friday to talk about Dwayne Haskins when it's just so fresh and, you know, the emotions and everything are just so, you know, kind of real now. I wish I would have done it in real time. But I don't want to wait till Friday. You know, I just wanted to get that out now. But moving on to UFC 273, like I said, an absolute banger. There were so many decisions on this card. There were so many fights that went to decision, but even then it was such a banger, man. It was so good. The fights were insanely good. Let me pull up the entire card just so I don't miss anything. Obviously it would be easy to just talk about the main ones that we, you know, to talk about Khamzat, and we'll get there. Khamzat and there's one. There's one of them, but Khamzat and Gilbert Burns would be easy to talk about. But I did want to pull up the entire card because there were a lot of good fights on the prelims. There were good fights to start out that main card. So I wanted to pull that up for you. Obviously, the main event, Volkanovski, Korean Zombie. We'll get into all these in a minute. Vince Pichel. Vince Pichel I did not realize how interesting of a character. Vince Pichel started off the main card. Him and Mark Madsen opened up the main card. And Vince Pichel was talking a lot beforehand, talking about he was going to run through Mark Madsen, and he was, you know, he was doing his part. He was selling the fight. He was talking all types of shit. I didn't realize how much Vince Pichel like just talks in general. I never followed him on Twitter. I never really heard him say anything. I thought he was a quiet guy, to be honest. Like, I didn't know enough about his personality. I thought he was just a quiet dude that just went about his business. But he was talking all types of shit. He ended up losing this fight by decision. It was a unanimous decision. Mark Madsen just out-wrestled him, you know, held him on the mat, an insane amount of control time for Mark Madsen. So Mark Madsen clearly won the fight. And even afterwards, Vince Pichel was like talking all types of shit, talking about how Mark Madsen doesn't want to fight. He was being a bitch. Like, I came to fight. He came to just try to hold me the whole fight. Like, just kind of going on. He's using like references saying like, oh, I came to fight. He said something around the lines is like, using the American flag is like, oh, we come to fight, and you just, you know, fought scared. He put like his Canadian flag up, which is just kind of like weird. It's like, okay, what do your guys' fight have to do with being an American and a Canadian? But Vince Pichel talking all types of shit, and I'm kind of like it. I'm like, you know, I always like the good. Now you got to win. You know, you have to win if you're talking all that shit. But it was a good way to start that opening card up. Let me get to the early prelims. Started off with Julio Arce, Daniel Santos. It was a good fight. Arce's boxing was clean as hell. Worked the body up top. His boxing was phenomenal. His head movement was incredible. Santos was pushing forward, and the fact that he was doing it off his back foot, he was doing it while being pressured. He wasn't the one controlling the octagon. He was the one on his back foot. He was the one with his back to the fence the majority of the fight. But just his movement, his lateral movement, his head movement, his counter shots, it was just beautiful boxing from Julio Arce. Piera Rodriguez made her UFC debut. She fought Kay Hansen, who Kay Hansen's a pretty notable girl in the UFC. Kay Hansen's doing all the right things in terms of trying to garnish some attention, trying to create her fan base. I hate referencing it, but it is what it is, man. She had started an OnlyFans, and I think that kind of started generating a lot of popularity, as it seems to do. I honestly don't. I know I'm gonna get a lot. Oh, you don't know what's on. I've never been on her OnlyFans. Like, I have no clue what. Like, I don't know if she posts nude photos or not. I'm assuming that they're just kind of risque. They're not like nude photos. She's not out here fucking spread eagle. But when you do that, you start getting two sides of the coins, right? Like, you're gonna get some people that are like, oh, here comes another one, and it's kind of a curse. There's this OnlyFan curse that's happening right now through female fighters. Like, every single time a female fighter starts an OnlyFan, they start losing. I don't know what it is. Like, it would be too easy to be like, oh, they're giving that too much attention, it's taking away from their training, but like, that can't take away. I'm not assuming that's not taking too much of your time. I don't assume that that's some huge time consuming thing to post pictures. Like, you know, what's the difference between that and doing like a photo shoot? People do photo shoots all the time. You see fighters pick up gigs and, they'll be in some little small roles in TV shows or movies and stuff. And like, that's more time consuming than just starting an OnlyFans account. So I don't know what it is, but Kay Hansen's extremely young. Somebody who got into the UFC at a really, really young age, had a lot of pop behind her early on. Hasn't been looking good for her. She's lost a couple in a row. Piera Rodriguez, this was her first fight in the UFC. The first time we saw her was on Dana White Contender Series, where she looked like a freaking animal. She was in some trouble in this fight. It seemed like Kay Hansen was starting to kind of win the fight, especially early on. I think she got the first round. And then Piera Rodriguez just did a really good job switching it on her. Kay Hansen, what it seems like is Kay Hansen is a really good offensive wrestler, not so good as a defensive wrestler. So very offensive minded for Kay Hansen. When it comes to defense, she still has a lot of holes. She gets hit, a little too frequently, and her takedown defense isn't as good as you would expect it to be, considering that her, grappling offensively, she's pretty good. So you would assume that defensively she would be, well-rounded as well, but she's kind of not. And Piera Rodriguez did just enough, man. She did enough to win the rounds. Rounds 2 and 3, I believe she won. And she won by unanimous decision. So, every judge had her winning that fight. So shout out for Piera Rodriguez, 1-0 in the UFC. I really like her style. She's very aggressive. She comes forward, has good hands, has good wrestling too. Her takedown defense was a little off against Kay Hansen, but again, Kay Hansen is a skilled opponent. Like, for that being your first fight isn't a walk in the park. And it wasn't a walk in the park for her. She had to make some adjustments and win the last couple rounds. And then Alexei Olynyk, man, that dude, man, is just a fucking boa constrictor. Like, Alexei Olynyk's winning by submission, or he's losing. That's it. There's no in between. Alexei Olynyk isn't doing enough to win decisions. Like, he's winning by submission or he's losing the fight. Pulling guard, pulling him into him, just the transitions throughout that fight. Somehow, some way, he finds his way around your neck. He finds a way to get you in a submission, and he ends up winning performance of the night as well. Alexei Olynyk, he did it in the first round against Jared Vendera. And Alexei Olynyk, man, the old man keeps it moving. The old man gets another win. He's just one of those fun fighters where you just, every time you see him, you're just like, and that's the thing I love, man, is people always hate on grappling. And listen, yeah, the most boring fights are always going to be the fights that are just heavy, heavy wrestling. When I say wrestling, I mean wrestling, not ground and pound, not, looking for submissions where it's all about, position on the ground, maintaining a position, winning control time. Those fights are always going to be extremely boring. When you see guys going to the ground and neither one of them are trying to finish the fight from that position. But these jiu-jitsu guys are the really, really high level ones. They're fun to watch because even though they're on their back or even when they're on top, they're not looking for position and control time. They're looking for ways. They're trying to find ways to finish the fight. So when Olynyk fights, man, it kind of is, to me, not as exciting, but it kind of is to me like watching a really skilled striker that throws a lot of wild shit where you're like, I don't know if he finishes this fight, it's going to be crazy. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be some spinning head kick or some wild type of strike. Alexei Olynyk could do that on the ground game. In the ground game, on the ground, he's always going to be looking for submissions, and you don't know what submission is coming, but you know that it's just constant transition into something else. It's constantly looking for that submission where you're like, oh shit, he has this. Oh wait, he transitioned to this. Oh wait, he has that. So it's fun to watch Alexei Olynyk, man. I'm never going to be a hater on Alexei Olynyk. He's not a world beater. I don't see him climbing up the ranks and fighting, becoming a contender, especially I believe he's in his 40s now, but he still is fun to watch. And then Mickey Gall, poor Mickey Gall, just continues to do what Mickey Gall does, man. You talk about a journeyman, and I know it's not fair to call him a journeyman. Mickey Gall's always going to be known as a guy that beat CM Punk, and I love Mickey Gall, man. He's cool, but every single time you see Mickey, and it's like, all right, here we go. He gets a win. I think I said this. I know obviously I didn't have the podcast Friday. I think last Monday I was talking about him looking forward into this fight. And I had mentioned that I was like, he's a win one, lose one guy. He'll win a couple and then lose one, and it's like, oh, here we go. He won one. He fought somebody else. He looked really good, and then he'll lose one, and he loses to Mike Mallet, KO'd in the first round. I honestly didn't see too much of that fight. I was just we watched it at me and my boys. We saw the fights at a Twin Peaks, and we had just gotten there. We were waiting to get seated, so I missed that fight. I just saw the aftermath, like the highlights of it. We literally sat down when they were interviewing and seeing the replays and stuff. But tough for Mickey Gall, man. You always want him to kind of string it together. He just kind of has the fans' hearts because he did what people wanted him to do against CM Punk. Like when CM Punk came in, everyone was just really upset at the UFC and like, why is this guy fighting? Like, there's so many guys who have been putting in the work for such a long time and have all these amateur fights and professional fights outside of the UFC. Why is CM Punk here? But we know why. Like, we knew why he was there. Right? It's just to sell, man. It's just to sell. And Dana White and the UFC, they constantly do this where they put guys in here and they really don't want them to succeed. Like, it's weird to say, but like, they didn't want CM Punk to succeed. They were like, let's give him somebody who we feel like is going to beat him. If he succeeds, then he succeeds. You know what I mean? If he beats him, then holy shit, we might actually have something. But we're going to test him out immediately because we don't need to make him a star. If anything, we need to show the public that these guys can't come in and do this. Like the guys at the top of this sport are here for a reason, and you can't replicate it. You can't do any of that. It's kind of what's happening to boxing and Jake Paul right now, where you look at Jake Paul and you look at the sport of boxing, and it's just like, damn, that dude is just. I mean, who's more popular than Jake Paul in the sport of boxing? Think about it. Canelo. After Canelo, it's like even Ryan Garcia and these guys aren't generating the buzz. You watch Ryan Garcia's last fight's not generating the buzz, and obviously I know Jake Paul's not fighting. He hasn't fought any actual boxers yet, but he's still generating a huge pop and a huge buzz in the sport where he's starting to make more money than 90% of the guys in the sport. And that's something that the UFC will never have happen. Like, it won't. Even if, Jake Paul was calling out Dana White saying, give me a fight with Conor in the UFC. I'll fight him at 170, 175, whatever it was. He said he'll cut down to. Like, I'll fight him. I'll do it. Give me the opportunity. Dana White's not going to do it because Jake Paul's going to say, here's my worth. And Dana White's going to say, no. You're not getting paid that. You're going to come in. You're going to get paid wherever we want to get you to be paid. And we want you to get your ass kicked. And we want you to disappear. And that's what they do to most guys. So when Mickey Gall fought CM Punk, like, that's exactly what they expected. They were like, we hope Mickey Gall comes out here, destroys them, and then everyone kind of realizes, oh, the UFC is not something to play with. You can't. It's not a spectacle. It's not a fucking circus. Like, you gotta really come with it. So because of that, he always has a place in people's heart of like, yeah, you were the one to beat up CM Punk and send him out of here. You were the one to kind of stop that nonsense and not let the circus run wild. But he's just, again, man, he wins one. You feel good about him. He loses. He'll win a couple, then he'll lose again. He's just kind of, unfortunately, it's really hard for me to ever see Mickey Gall being in that top 15 to be a ranked fighter in the UFC. And because of that, at this point, like, we've seen so much of him that if he doesn't get on a win streak, even if he wins the next one and then loses after that, I could see his time in the UFC being done, to be honest. Raquel Pennington, Aspen Ladd. I was going for Aspen, man. I really like Aspen Ladd, but Raquel Pennington did a really good job. She won by unanimous decision. Like I said, it's so many freaking decisions on this card. Fluffy Hernandez. The dude's wrestling, I did not know was this good. He kept looking for a Darce choke the whole fucking time. I know he had a Darce choke in his last fight. I know that's his thing. It's his go-to. There's so many moments where I felt like maybe he could have got Josh Fremd. There's so many moments where I felt like he could have got Josh Fremd out of there if he would have just started attacking, ground and pound, looking for the finish with elbows. He controlled, dominated on the ground, was able to get to any position he wanted to, was able to transition, it seemed, just easily. easily transition to wherever he wanted to, from going into side mount, going into side control, getting into half guard. There were so many moments where he had it, but he just kept looking for that dart stroke, kept looking for a submission game, where I felt like if he could have opened up a little bit more, started landing some elbows, started really putting pressure on him, because that type of constant pressure that Anthony Hernandez was putting on him, just constant pressure, taking him down, and you see Josh, and he's trying so hard to get up. You just saw him wilting, man, wilting, where I'm like, dude, he's ready to break. You just got to give him a reason to break. You got to start beating him up, start hitting him in the face, start busting him up, and then the submission will come, where he was just chasing the submission from the get-go. But dominant, I mean, pure dominance of that fight. I didn't see the scorecard afterwards. I don't know if there was a 10-8 round in there. Because there wasn't, like I said, a bunch of damage in it. I don't think there was a 10-8 round. But Anthony Hernandez just dominated that fight, which I love his nickname, Fluffy. He Mexican dude. He has the freaking mullet going, all tatted up. Like, I love that dude, man. I love Anthony Hernandez. I was going for him, and he got it done, man. A dominant performance. He was a favorite coming in, minus 180, but it looked like Josh shouldn't even have been in there with him. It looked like a complete beatdown. And then Ian Gary, Darion Weeks, they finished off the prelims. They finished off the prelim card. They're the main event of the prelims. Ian Gary is a huge hype train in the UFC. Another guy who, like Paddy Pimblett, like Khamzat, like Sean O'Malley, we have a lot of high hopes for him. And dude, I'm always team hype train. Whatever the hype train is, put me on the shit. Like, I don't care which one it is. It's just how I am. Like, I just want to see some spectacular shit. Like, Islam Makhachev. He's supposed to be Khabib 2.0. I'm down for it. I want to see it. I want to see someone who's even more dominant than Khabib. I'm with it. Let's make it happen. Let's get it rolling. Ian Gary, Sean O'Malley, Paddy Pimblett, Khamzat. I'm all on every single one of the hype trains because I want to see some special shit in the UFC. I don't want to think that every single person is human and they all have their ups and downs. I don't want to see it. I don't want it. I want the spectacular. I want the dominant. I want the holy shit. I want this guy something we've never seen. That's what I'm always looking for. So when you give me a hype train, I'm all over it. I'm the first fucking one. I'm the conductor of that shit. So Ian Gary, I'm all on that hype train. Darion Weeks made it really, really hard for him, and Ian Gary was a huge favorite coming in, minus 365 against Darion Weeks. He had such a height advantage, such a reach advantage. The only thing that concerns me a little bit is Ian Gary's, lack of aggression. And Darion Weeks made it hard. Darion Weeks was pressuring. He had Ian Gary off the back foot. He did a really good job. Darion Weeks wasn't really opening up himself. It was kind of a tough dance partner for Ian Gary because Darion Weeks was so, I don't want to say conservative, but he wasn't really opening it up. He wasn't giving a lot of opportunities for Ian Gary. But I think Ian Gary could have feinted a lot more, could have given him a little bit, I don't want to say level change because people are going to think I mean like shooting, like wrestling, but changing the shots on the levels, right? Attack the legs, attack the body a little bit more in the first few rounds, especially when Darion Weeks has that high guard and he's really hard to hit, especially when you have that reach advantage and you have such a height advantage. The downside of it is, that guy gets to get underneath shots, right? You're kind of punching down and the dude's able to dip under and get away from it. And he's shooting on Ian Gary and he's just kind of pressuring him, trying to keep his back against the fence so Ian can't really open up. But I think if he would have came out with a little more game plan to attack the legs, attack the body, maybe he could have opened up a little bit more. But he did what he had to do. He gets a unanimous decision win. He definitely looked like the more skilled fighter in there. He definitely looked like he was, the favorite for a reason. Again, he didn't beat him down. It was a good fight. It was all right. So kind of disappointing. You want, like I said, when you have that hype train, his first fight in the UFC was a KO. This was his second one. We wanted to see another KO. It didn't happen. It is what it is. We move on. I already talked about Vince Pichel and Mark Madsen opening up the main card. The next one was the one that I was really, really excited for. Mackenzie Dern, Tasha Torres. It was simple, man. Coming into the fight, we knew Tasha Torres was going to have the advantage on the feet. We knew Mackenzie Dern was going to have the advantage on the ground. Very clear, cut, and dry. My concern coming in, and I said this time and time again, I said, I don't know if Mackenzie Dern has the wrestling pedigree to be able to get Tasha Torres on the ground, to be able to whether it's by single leg, double leg, inside trips, outside trip out of the clinch. I don't think she has the wrestling ability to take Tecia Torres down. If she does, it's going to be a long night for Tasha. But I don't know if she can take her down. Tisha's very skilled. Tasha is definitely a lot better on the feet. Tasha has a lot of kicks. Her hands are fast. She's really fast. And it played out just like that. Mackenzie Dern had struggles, man. She started, again, looking sloppy on the feet, reaching, shooting from way out, just desperately trying to get Tisha's body, trying to get to body locks, trying to get to clinch situations by any means necessary, just kind of rushing in. If she has to take a shot just to get to an arm. There's a couple moments early in the first round where she's like holding onto her arm as Tisha's kind of pulling it back, and she's just trying to pull it with her, just finding a way. In the first round, I thought there was a moment where she could have pulled guard and she didn't, which, you know, it is risky whenever you pull guard. But in the second round, Mackenzie Dern, not necessarily pulling guard, but just jumping up, man. She kind of pulled guard in a way, just flies up like a freaking spider monkey, tries to get her in a Kimura. At first, she's trying to work for, maybe she's looking for a guillotine, switches it into a Kimura, all while just hanging on the body of Tecia Torres. And shout out Tasha, man. Most girls in that situation start to panic because it's how the fuck do you train for that? Like, when in Tecia Torres's training, where in her camp, right? If whatever it was, where they had 4 weeks, 6 weeks, I don't know how long they had to train for this fight. Where in that moment is she like, okay, jump up around my neck and put me in a Kimura while you're hanging on to me and let me practice how to get out of that? Like, you can't train for that. There's not a lot of people that are doing what Mackenzie Dern can do in terms of the submission game, in terms of jiu-jitsu. She's probably the best, you know, in all female category, not even in that division, just in terms of any female fighter. Mackenzie Dern's probably the most skilled in terms of jiu-jitsu. So when she puts you in some weird shit like that, it's almost like, damn, I wish she would have rather just taken my back like some normal stuff. You know what I mean? Like taking me down, and then, because it's more orthodox. Like in this situation, she's up, and then Mackenzie Dern did some crazy stuff because Tasha was fighting it with the fence when she was trying to get her in the Kimura. She was using the fence to kind of, you know, secure her arm in place. Mackenzie couldn't really crank it back because the fence was in the way, and Tasha was kind of turning into it. Mackenzie Dern freaking uses her foot and pushes off the fence to create separation. So, because one, you're either going to go to the ground and then you can really put torque on it, or two, you get the fence out of the way where you could do it. Like, who can train for that? How the hell do you prepare for that? So the fact that Tecia Torres was able to fight out of that some way, somehow, I thought her arm was shot, and it could have been just getting cranked backwards. Nasty. They end up going to the ground. Tasha fights out of it. You see her taking huge breaths while they're on there. She was just literally like, oh God, like I gotta get out of this somehow. She does. She fights it off. Mackenzie there and then takes it. I think she tried to turn it into some type of leg lock. I don't remember if she was working a knee or ankle. I really can't remember in that moment. But transitions into some other submission attempt. Again, another unorthodox one where it's like, yeah, Tecia Torres in that moment, like she better have been training against any type of leg lock. So she did a good job getting out of that as well. But that just killed it, man. The second round definitely went to Dern. Dern did what she needed to do, and the third round was pretty close. So Mackenzie Dern ends up winning that fight by split decision. It was a really, really close fight. I think I saw some people saying that Tasha, and also, why is everything a robbery? It's like every decision now is a robbery. Like, dude, sometimes it's close fights and they could go either way. When a fight can go either way, it's not a robbery. That's why people are, oh, Tecia Torres got robbed. It could have gone either. Did Tecia Torres beat the shit out of her? I'm sorry, did I miss something? Tecia Torres drop her, knock her down, bloody her up. Did I miss something? Tecia Torres did okay. She did a really good job. She did a great job fighting off the submissions. You know, she had a couple moments in that fight. There was a moment where she kind of kicked her. I think it was like an up kick, possibly, where she kind of kicked her as Mackenzie Dern was coming up off of her to try to maybe get into a different position. But she was getting off. Tecia Torres was on her back and like up kicked her. And at first glance, it looked like she rocked her and put her down. But then when you saw it in slow motion, she kind of hit her in the chest. So, you know, even then, it wasn't like a huge moment in the fight. But, you know, it is what it is, man. Mackenzie Dern won. I actually had Mackenzie Dern winning 2-1. I gave her the second, obviously, and then I believe the third. Tasha, in my opinion, won the first round. So, and even if they gave it to Tasha, that third round was so, you know, so close that if they gave it to Tasha, I would have been like, oh, Mackenzie Dern got robbed. But I did think Dern won that fight. And then Gilbert Burns, Khamzat Chimaev, the fight of the night, a fight that this was the main event. And you can tell it was a main event because I was fucking exhausted after this fight. Like, as Sterling and Yan were coming out, I was there with a friend of mine. He had a friend of his. Like, we were just kind of looking at each other like, hey, kind of want to go home. Like, I'm fucking tired, man. We got there right at the beginning. I'm sorry, we got there right at the end of the prelims, right at the beginning of the main card. So we were tired, man. I was like, I feel like it's gone. And then because there were so many decisions, it just felt like such a long night. And this fight was so highly anticipated that it really got your blood boiling. And then the fight itself was so fucking nuts that it just had you so crazily excited, had your heart rate just freaking going watching this fight, that afterwards it was like this huge adrenaline jump just watching the damn fight. Just watching the fight was exhausting. So I could just imagine how Gilbert Burns, cool, I got a text, how Gilbert Burns and Khamzat Chimaev, I don't turn off my phone, that's freaking awesome, how Gilbert Burns and Khamzat Chimaev were feeling in that moment must have been insane, man. And here's the thing, again, I want to be on the hype train. I'm all on the Khamzat Chimaev hype train. All on it. All aboard, baby. Part of it sucks because I want him to be indestructible. I don't want him to be human. I wanted him to come through and blow through Gilbert Burns the way no one ever has. I wanted Gilbert Burns to be the number 2 ranked fighter in that welterweight division and look like he has no business being with Khamzat. That's what I wanted. Because if that happens, you start 3-division champion. How many people is he going to smash? What's he going to do to Usman? What's he going to do to Adesanya if he wants to? That's what I really wanted. Did it happen? No. 2 things happened. 1, Gilbert Burns showed us that Khamzat's human. He's human. 2, Khamzat showed us that he's championship level. Gilbert Burns is not an easy fight. Gilbert Burns is ranked second in the world at welterweight for a reason. Gilbert Burns is a fucking savage. Gilbert is a monster, a freaking monster, and he showed us that. He said, oh, I'm a plus 340? This dude's a minus 500 against me? Okay. You must have forgot. You must have forgot who I am and what I've done to people, especially as of late. You must have forgot that in the first round of that Kamaru Usman championship fight that I was just in not too long ago, that I dropped him. And I had people thinking that I was about to be the new champion. You must have forgot that I am the 2nd ranked welterweight in the world for a fucking reason. And Gilbert Burns put on a great performance the first round. Khamzat looked good. Gilbert Burns looked good, but Khamzat dropped him, threw some nasty elbows on the ground, split him open. I was like, all right, here we go. Wasn't the first round finish we were hoping for. Again, we wanted that just, oh man, what he's saying when he's in the press conference and he's like, I'm going to kill this guy. I'm like, yeah, man, I want that. And it didn't happen. Gilbert Burns is a monster. But the thing that I really liked, here's the thing. I saw somebody mention Israel Adesanya in this fight, and they said Gilbert Burns is to Khamzat Chimaev what Kelvin Gastelum was to Izzy, where he needed to get pushed. He needed to find something out about himself in a fight before we can invest in him to be a champion. We need your heart tested. Yes, it's great if you could just smash everybody and destroy everybody in the first round, but we need to know that we can invest in you when shit gets tough. And Dana White mentioned it in the post-fight interview. He was talking about Teddy Atlas, who I fucking how Teddy Atlas doesn't do more things for MMA, for the UFC in particular. Teddy Atlas is one of the most well-spoken. I mean, when I talk about genius level people, Teddy Atlas is a genius of the fight game. He's a fucking genius. When you hear him talk and when you hear him understand what's going on from a detailed point of view, we can tell what's going on, right? Gilbert Burns is a fucking savage, Khamzat's a savage, and you got 2 savages doing some savage shit. We know that, but Teddy Atlas can detail exactly what the game inside of the game is. Teddy Atlas's podcast is fucking awesome. Go listen to it. It's called The Fight with Teddy Atlas. He's amazing, man. He's just a mastermind. And Dana White talked about him in the post-fight when he was talking about a tweet. He said Teddy Atlas tweeted during the fight, "We know what Khamzat has on the outside in terms of skill. Going into the third round, this is between second and third round. He was like, we know what Khamzat has on the outside in terms of skill. We're about to find out what he has on the inside." And you can tell that when Dana White said it, he said it with a grin. When Dana White read it, he got fucking chills up his spine when he read that, because he's like, ooh, like it was right. Teddy Atlas was 100% right. We know what Khamzat could do. We saw him take Gilbert Burns down in the first round. We saw him drag him, almost ragdoll him in a certain point. Gilbert Burns is a monster off the floor, though. There's not a lot of guys as good as Gilbert Burns in terms of threatening with submissions and guys that you really, really, really have to be concerned about, even when you're on top position. Gilbert Burns is one of them. Not a lot of guys like him. Not at any weight class. There's not a lot of guys like him. Like him, Oliveira, Brian Ortega, like those are the guys that you really have to be careful about, even when you're on top position. So it was kind of tough for Chimaev. He couldn't really open up like I know he wanted to. And Gilbert Burns is a tough motherfucker to take down. And Gilbert Burns has amazing wrestling offensively, and he couldn't take down Khamzat at all. I mean, not even close. He got in deep on one shot. Khamzat just fucking shrugs him off. Just so big and strong. But he said it perfectly, man. The second round, it looked like, oh shit, Khamzat's wilting. Like, Khamzat's about to break. Gilbert Burns is about to win this fucking fight. And some way, somehow, Khamzat gets to the second, gets, to the stool. His trainer, his cornerman's fucking yelling at him. I wish they had the translator in that moment. I think I saw in some comment, I think I saw a comment that translated it. Somebody said that they spoke Swedish or whatever, and they said that it translates into stop fighting with him. Like, he was just upset that Khamzat was trying to slug it out and that he wasn't sticking to a game plan, which later on Khamzat said, even in the interview, I didn't stick to the game plan, and I just wanted to kill this dude so bad that I went away from the game plan and I fucked up and I made mistakes and I shouldn't have done that. But it looked like Khamzat was about to wilt, man. It looked like this is what Gilbert does to everybody. Like, everybody not named Kamaru Usman, Gilbert Burns breaks them like this, and he's about to break Khamzat. And then the third round comes out, and Khamzat's back to doing his thing, man. He's pressuring Gilbert, he's pushing him back, and then he starts putting on a pace. He starts throwing shots. Gilbert starts covering up. He's getting hit with shots, and it's like, oh shit, Khamzat's about to finish this fight. Gilbert finishes strong. Khamzat finishes, like, it was a fucking war, dude. Like, when you look at both those guys, I'm like, I wish I could. The only thing I wish is that this was a 5-round fight, because if neither one of them broke after 5 rounds of that, it would have been the greatest fight of all time. If you had 5 rounds of that and neither one of them break, but I would have loved to find out who would eventually break. Who eventually would have broken between the two of them, because that's going to tell a lot. But it gave us a good tell that we can invest in Khamzat's heart. We can invest in Khamzat's mental fortitude. We can invest in that now. We can always invest in his skill. Heavy pressure, unbelievable wrestler, has good striking behind it as well. Has a dog mentality. Like, we already knew that, but like Teddy Atlas said, now we know we can invest in his heart. Now we know we can invest in his toughness. Now we know that when he gets hit, when he gets pressured, when he's in the deep end, he's not fucking quitting. He's not looking for a way out. He's going to keep fighting through the flames. And that's what we learned about Khamzat. So a lot of people are out on Khamzat now. Oh, Colby's going to kill him. Kamaru will kill him. If that's what Gilbert Burns did to him, Colby's going to break him. Not so fast, man. Now, am I saying that Khamzat should be a big favorite against Colby or a favorite against Kamaru? No. I think that fight showed us that the minus 500 was fucking crazy, which a lot of people thought it was from the beginning. But it shows us that Khamzat belongs there, right at the top, right with Burns, right with Colby, right with Usman. Khamzat deserves right to be right in there. And people forget, this is only Khamzat's 11th total fight. It's only his 11th professional fight. I think this is his 4th or 3rd UFC fight. I could be wrong. 3rd or 4th. I know he hasn't had more or less than 3 or 4. It's either his 3rd or 4th UFC fight. I think he's had 3. He had the 2. He had the first one. He destroyed a guy. It might be more. He had the first, and then he fought right after beat the shit out of this dude. Mirhart, however you say his name, knocked him out. Then Lee Zhang, and then so this is his fifth fight. This is his fifth fight in the UFC. To go 4 fights, all unranked. I think Lee was his only ranked fight. I think he was ranked 15th when he fought him, but he was not ranked before that fight got made. So to say I'm gonna have 3 fights against 3 guys that nobody has any confidence in, nobody has any faith in, and then I'm gonna fight one guy who barely got into the top 15 as a number 15 ranked guy, and then I'm gonna fight Gilbert fucking Burns, the second guy who just fought for the title not too long ago. I'm gonna fight that dude and be a minus 500. It was wild to me. Absolutely wild. And the fact that he won and had to go through the fire and had to push, and now he knows. Now he understands the difficulty. Sometimes you can fall in love with yourself a little too much. And you see it with Khamzat. You saw the playfulness with Darion Till so much. Obviously all of these guys have their own vlogs and podcasts, and they're doing everything they can to try to build the fan base, which they should be doing. And Khamzat should continue to do the vlogs, continue to, his YouTube channel, all that, which check out Khamzat's YouTube channel. It's fucking awesome. Like him and Darion Till, him and the whole team. You think that Khamzat's just this like mercenary, this like I'm always serious, I'm always trying to kill somebody attitude, and then you realize like in the vlogs and stuff like, oh, he's very goofy, very funny, he loves to have a good time. And it's one of those situations where maybe he was having too much of a good time. Maybe he really thought where he's still, don't get me wrong, Khamzat put the work in. Khamzat worked as hard for this fight as any other fight in his life, probably even harder. Make no mistake about it. I'm not saying that he didn't put the work in, he was goofing around. No. What I'm saying is that now he understands how hard shit can be if he's not perfect. And I think every champion needs to realize that. Every champion needs to be in that moment where they're like, shit could get real bad here. Shit could go real south if I'm not perfect. I'm not just going to destroy everybody. I have to be the perfect fighter. And I think Khamzat learned this in this fight. And I think it's only going to make him a better fighter. I don't think this is a step back for him. I think this is going to propel him. We know he's human. Yes, if he went out there and just destroyed Gilbert, ragdolled him, beat the shit out of him, got a stoppage in the first round, yeah, that would have made us go, well, he's a champion. Let's fucking put the crown on him. When is he going to fight Izzy? When does he become double champ? Can he be a triple champ? Can he move up to light heavy? Like, we would have went crazy. We would have just thought that this guy is going to do all the impossible. He's going to be the greatest fucking fighter of all time. Of course. And we wanted that. A lot of us wanted that. Some people didn't. But everyone that's on that hype train all wanted that. But this isn't a step back for him. It's a realization. He could still be champion. He could still be a 2-division champion. He might have needed this in order to do so. He might have beat the shit out of him so easy, fought Colby, had a big head thinking he was just going to destroy Colby, not take it as seriously, came out so aggressive, and then Colby just breaks him over 5 rounds. And you're like, oh shit, Khamzat lost badly. Now, because of this fight, he goes, if I'm going to fight Colby Covington for 5 rounds, I have to do things a little different. I can't assume I'm going to come out and break him and just destroy him. I have to be smarter. I have to pace myself and make sure that I can put it on and I can wear the pace that Colby's going to set for 5 rounds. That fight's going to be so fucking interesting because both those guys want to do the same shit. They both want to get your back to the fence, pressure, takedowns when they can. They want to break your spirit, man. Both of them. That fight to me, everyone's so like sold on the fact that Colby's gonna beat Khamzat now. No, dude, I'm not. Now, granted, I don't know if Khamzat should be a favorite in that fight. Colby Covington's a bad man. So I don't think Khamzat should be a favorite in that fight. But I do believe that that's a fight Khamzat could win. He could win that fight. Colby gets hit, man. Colby gets hit, and Khamzat probably, when it came to Masvidal, we saw the stand-up discrepancy. Colby started getting shots in, and Colby started putting a pace on him because Masvidal was breaking. Masvidal's stamina, his endurance just wasn't there. He doesn't have the conditioning to handle Colby, and Colby started teeing off because he was breaking him. And even in that moment, Masvidal was still able to drop him. Masvidal still had the best strikes of that fight, right? He had the biggest moments in terms of the stand-up just all around much better striker. Now I'm not saying Khamzat's a striker that Masvidal is. Masvidal is one of the better boxers in the UFC, but I don't know if Colby has found anybody that has the ability to stop his takedowns, threaten him with a takedown, and have the striking that Chimaev has. The only other person is the current champion, is Kamaru Usman. The thing I like about this fight is it makes Colby and Kamaru both down to fight Khamzat. If he would have came out and blasted through Gilbert, I was like, I don't know if Colby's going to want to take that fight. Like, I don't know if Usman's going to, Usman might be like, retirement might look good for me now. But now because of this, I feel like both guys are like, oh, we could beat him. We could beat him. But I'm telling you, man, Khamzat showed, he gave us something in the tank. It's almost better. It's almost better when you see somebody go through that 3-round war and you can invest in their heart. Now you know Colby's not going to be able to just break him. Now you know that he's not someone where if he doesn't get, it's like a Conor McGregor effect, where Conor's going to come out and try to take your fucking head off in the first round. But as soon as that gets to round 2, round 3, you start losing some faith in Conor. You start going, he's going to gas out. He's going to will. He's, if Conor starts gassing, Conor's like, I'm fucking done. And that's something that you worried about. But when you see him go through a 3-round war like that, you're like, nah, man, Colby ain't going to be able to break this dude that easily. Could win, still beat him, but Colby ain't going to be able to just break him. So I am very excited for Khamzat Chimaev Colby Covington fight. And then on to the co-main event, Aljamain Sterling, Petr Yan, champion in Aljamain Sterling. Some call him a paper champ, some call him a fraud, fake champ, against Petr Yan, who's the interim champion, who a lot of people call the real champion. Obviously, we know what happened in the first fight. Petr Yan was winning, was starting to take over. Looked like he was going to get a finish in that fight. Looked like he wasn't even going to make it to the end. Looked like he wasn't going to go to decision. And then Yan throws an illegal knee. Aljamain Sterling gets hit with it. Again, in my opinion, the fact that Aljamain Sterling had to put on an act, which he did, let's call it what it is. Aljamain Sterling definitely milked the shit out of it. He acted his way into them stopping the fight. But again, it shouldn't have been up to him, man. When somebody gets hit with a knee like that, that's a fucking knee to the temple. A hard one. The fight's over. I don't need you to act. I don't need to give you enough time. I'm calling it as a referee. Hey, man, that was a hard fucking shot. Like, you should, whatever the shot is, whatever the illegal shot is, it should be over. If you're on the ground, I'm on your back, and I hit you with an elbow in the back of the head, illegal, boom, puts you out for a moment, you come to and you're good. You shouldn't have to, even if you're good, that's it. Because I don't know how much damage that did to you. I don't know if that made you this much closer to really getting your lights put out. But I know you got concussed in that moment. So they should have never left it up to Aljo. Aljo should have never had to put on an acting performance in order to get that disqualification win. They should have just stopped it. A lot of people hated Aljamain Sterling because he had to do that. A lot of people felt like he should have just, been that type of just raw freaking savage and just kept going after that, and he would have been stopped by Petr, and it is what it is. People also didn't like that he was taking pictures, and he just kind of ran with it. He said, fuck it, I'm the champ now, and a lot of people didn't like that. It is what it is, but they had their rematch, and Aljamain Sterling, man, proves a lot of people wrong. Everyone thought this was going to be a fight where Yan comes in. Yan thought it was going to be a fight where he comes in and just runs through Aljamain Sterling. He's going to get a finish somewhere in the 3rd, 4th round, just like last time. Yan's going to beat the shit out of him. We know how this fight's going to go. And Aljamain made the right adjustments, man. I really think Aljamain, it's weird to say, but a lot of people in that situation that started to break the way Aljamain started breaking, that started to take the shots that Aljamain started taking, where it starts looking real bad for you, a lot of people would have lost confidence coming in the second fight because of how that first one played out. But I give a lot of credit to Aljo because he really did have the confidence. Like, there's no doubt that Aljamain really looked at that first fight and said, no, I could beat him. I just have to change my game plan up a little bit. I just made a mistake coming out so aggressive and so fast-paced right off the bat. I can still beat him. And he really believed that. And you saw in the first round, and a lot of people, again, this is another fight where everyone's, Petr Yan got robbed. It was a split decision. One judge gave 3 rounds to Petr. The other 2 gave 3 rounds to Aljamain. Again, it's not robbery. Could I have seen it going Petr Yan's way? Yeah. Obviously, Aljamain won the second and third round. Clearly. Yan clearly won the fourth and fifth round. Clearly, the one that was up for debate was round 1. And this is something that Yan has to figure out as a fighter. You can't just take rounds off. I get it. Yan isn't Yan never has the that type of I want to come out and destroy you. He's very different from Khamzat, right? Khamzat they're both the same type of killer. They're both killers, but Khamzat wants to kill you immediately, where Yan wants to slow cook it a little bit. I'm gonna let you hang around a little bit. I just want to figure you out. And Yan does so much reading in the first round. He just wants to pressure. He wants to move forward, but he wants to just get a lot of tells, man. He wants to bring so much shit out on you. He's feinting, high guard. He's just walking forward. He's kind of letting you get your shit off. He's just playing defense. He's trying to see what your combinations are, how you're reacting to the things that he's doing, to see where his openings are and start taking advantage of that in the later rounds. But because you don't have activity now, Yan was pushing forward in the first round, but it wasn't any volume. There wasn't a lot of offense coming from Yan. It was a lot of just reading. And I do think that Aljamain Sterling had enough. And on the flip side, Aljamain didn't clearly win the first round because he came out differently than the first fight, right? If Aljamain would have came out like he did the first fight, where he comes out like a bat out of hell, he would have easily won the first round. Because in their first fight, he easily won the first round. So they both kind of wanted to see where this fight was going in the first round. They both treated the first round as a real fill out. Let's just see what's going on. But I think Aljamain did enough offensively, threw enough strikes. He when there's no damage from either guy, they're going to go with the guy who's throwing more strikes, attempting the takedowns. Like, they're going to go with that guy. So I understand why they went with Aljo. But that first round was just so iffy that even if they gave it to Yan, it is what it is. I had it 3-2 for Aljo personally. I gave him the first round just because, like I said, he was a little more active. Neither one of them did any damage. Neither one of them had any moments in that first round. But Aljo threw a little bit more. He was a little more active. Yan was more just trying to get reads, just trying to draw shit out of him and figure out how he was going to attack. So because of that, Yan has to learn that, man. Hey, I can't just give away a first round. I got to win the first round. Even if it's still filling out, I just need to throw a little bit more. I needed to land a little bit more. I need to be a little bit more aggressive in that first round. And he would have won the fight. And he has to learn that moving forward, man. You can't just keep, the first round just can't be so relaxed for you. You have to put a little bit on them. At least try to win the round, outpoint them at least, and then start pouring it on round 2, 3, 4. And then the last fight of the night was just a no contest. It was just brutal shades of Gaethje and Tony Ferguson. It reminded me of that fight a lot, where one guy's just so outclassed. It just getting the shit kicked out of him. The difference between Ferguson and Gaethje was Ferguson unfortunately took a little bit more damage than Korean Zombie did, but the difference is that Ferguson had a little bit of success. If you remember the first round of that fight, right at the end of the round, Ferguson dropped Gaethje with an uppercut. And it was one of those shots where you're like, shit, man, if he would have had more time, who knows what could have happened in that round, where Zombie had no fucking success anywhere. There was nothing. Right from the opening bell, it looked like that fight just shouldn't have ever taken place. And to see Volkanovski ask him in between round 3 and 4, I believe, it finished in round 4. It was either in between round 3 or 4, in between round 2 and 3, where they came back out and Volkanovski asked him, "Are you sure?" Volkanovski knows I am beating the fuck out of this dude, where he asked the Korean Zombie, as they're about to fight, they touch gloves and he goes, "Are you sure?" And Zombie's like, "I fucking guess, man. Like, yeah, I'm sure." And it's like, damn, dude. And even Volkanovski afterwards was like, I started feeling bad for him. He's so tough, but I started feeling bad for him because I was just fucking landing everything, man. Like, everything he threw was landing. It seemed like the more power he put behind it, the more it landed. I was like, Jesus Christ. Just no head movement. Zombie had such a hard time. He can't threaten with submissions. Then Volkanovski he can't threaten with takedowns. Then Volkanovski starts getting takedowns. Now he's mixing it up. Now you can't even really defend against the strikes that are coming at you because you're also worried about the leg kicks. Start beating the shit out of the inside leg. Then he starts mixing in takedowns and he's throwing power behind it. It's like, it was bad. And, Volk was a minus 720. He was the biggest favorite on the card for a reason. Korean Zombie wasn't. And it's like Volk said afterwards, like, he's like, I'm fighting these guys that I guess they deserve it, but they kind of don't, and Zombie, it's like, yeah, I guess he deserves a title shot because of the career that he's had, right? Because of the warrior that he is and the fact that everybody loves him, and he hasn't been an easy fight for anybody. And that speaks to how good Volk is. Like, Volk might be the fucking greatest 145er of all time. He really might be that good. If somebody tells me right now Volk's the greatest, the greatest featherweight of all time, how can you argue it? How can you argue it? Dude ain't lost. The dude hasn't lost. He beat Max twice. Controversially, I get it, but he still didn't lose to Max. It's not like Max beat him up and somehow lost that, and somehow still lost that fight. Like, it was a very, very close fight. So if he edges Max, and Max, we started talking about, is one of the greatest, if not the greatest featherweight of all time. Volkanovski's a monster, man. A monster. And again, Zombie didn't get there because he beat Holloway, or he had a crazy run of just, if Zombie beat Ortega and then beats Holloway and he fights Volk, okay, he deserved to be there. But he lost to Ortega. He got beat up by Brian Ortega. Brian Ortega's striking looked better than it ever has. So when you see somebody who's just taking shots and having a hard time making Ortega miss, what is Volk going to do to him? We all knew how this fight was going to play out. I think some people were hopeful, but I don't think anybody had any confidence in Zombie. I think it was just hopefulness that somebody that they really love as much as Korean Zombie can somehow find a way to get it done. He still has a huge, right hand, still has a lot of big punching power. Maybe he lands something on Volk, but it was just a no contest, man. It looked like Volk was just in that fucking flow state, sparring mode. It looked like Max looked against Ortega. It looked like the way Max looked against Calvin Kattar, was just a fucking beatdown. It's just a no contest. But it shows you, like, when you see what Max did to Brian, when you see what Volk did to Brian, when you see what Max did to Kattar, nobody does that to Kattar. When you see what Volkanovski does to Zombie, nobody does that to Zombie. Those two, if it's 1A and 1B, there's no 2. There's no 3. There's no 4. Like, it's those two, wherever you want to put them, and then a big drop to Brian Ortega and Calvin Kattar. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a big drop in that division. Volkanovski and Holloway is the only fight to make. I know Volk is talking about moving up to 155. He says that maybe Holloway. I wish Dana would have came out and said, oh, yeah, the Max fight's the next fight. It seems like they're going to give Max somebody else. And all we can hope is that Max, whoever they give him, that he goes out there and destroys, and then we get to see that fight the third time. Because that's going to be, even if Volkanovski wins another close fight, it's a decision win. 3 decision wins is enough to call it a rest and say, hey, man, you're the fucking greatest of all time. But that's the only fight. Anybody else is like, he's not fighting the best, right? Whether he fights Zombie, whether he fights Brian Ortega, everybody knows, hey, Max is the best. It's the same thing with Usman and Colby Covington right now. That's why we get so excited when we see a Khamzat Chimaev, because it's like, this dude's the best guy. Colby's clearly the best guy. Colby's this close to being champion. He's always this close to being the guy. A lot of people thought Colby won the second fight. Colby's always so close to being the champion. And that's Max as well. Max and Volk are doing the same shit that Usman and Colby are doing, where it's just they're so much better than the rest that we just have to, who cares if we see it 3 times? Even if it's 2-0, we still want a third. Imagine that. How many times have you seen somebody be 2-0 against somebody, but we still are dying to see the third fight? That's nuts, man. That just speaks volumes to how good Max Holloway and Colby Covington are as challengers to the champions. They're the fucking best, man. And there's no one close to it. So for me, Volk, Holloway, you got to do it the third time, and we got to put it to rest. If Max comes out there and beats them, then, Volk can go and fight somebody else, and he can get back. In my opinion, man, the way this shit's looking, they might end up fighting 4 times. Who knows? One of them's going to have to eventually move up if we want them to kind of get away from each other. One of them's going to have to move up to 155 if we want them to stop, if we don't want to see them fight 6 fucking times. But anyway, that wraps it up. It was a great card. I hope you guys watched it. I hope you guys had fun. I'll be back Wednesday. We're going to talk a lot about the NBA, the playoffs, just around the corner. The playing game, I believe, is tomorrow or the day after. What's today's date? So the playing games are 2 days from now. So we'll be able to talk about it on Wednesday. We'll get into the playing tournament. We'll get into the playoffs and the seeding. We'll talk all about the possible matchups, which teams I like, which teams I don't like. We'll have a huge NBA episode on Wednesday, and then obviously football on Friday. So thank you guys again for being here. Episode 50 is a wrap. Have a good one. Peace.